Hey, what's up guys? Prepared Survivalist here. Going to be looking at some modifications to 110 Conibears. So the reason I did this is because it seems like I'm kind of finding out the hard way that these don't really work that good out of the box, like most traps. Had a lot of issues with basically them not being set off, and because I bait these a lot of the time, so you know I'll come back to them and I'll see that the whiskers are pushed all the way over, but the trap is still not sprung yet, and they're basically just not sensitive enough, and that's even after putting it on the most sensitive setting. And there's just other things that keep the animals that you want to catch from getting caught in here. So I'm going to just kind of go over some of the mods that I've done. So first off, I just spray paint them. A lot of people speed dip and wax them and all that, dye them. But they're just like $5-6 110, so it's not that big of a deal. I just spray paint them, kind of camouflage, and that keeps them from rusting up real bad. And it just kind of helps them blend into the environment. Some people might say that they'll smell and they'll have a scent, but eventually that kind of goes away. And if you got peanut butter or whatever baiting the trap, the animal's going to be more focused on the scent of the food rather than the man-made scent from the paint. So that's what I chose to do to paint these. And then I'll often just tie like some paracord. On this one I've got some bank line tied to the end of the chain, and that just helps me to kind of like tie it off somewhere. Generally you don't have to worry about an animal chewing through that, so it's really just to kind of anchor it to keep something, if it doesn't die right away, from pulling the trap off. So I got that, and then I'm kind of experimenting with how I'm doing the whiskers here. So at first I just kind of had them like this, but they say that animals don't like to have cold metal on their face, so you're just basically relying on the animal pushing through with its head, which is kind of not the behavior they're accustomed to doing. So I don't think that works very well. And I do different sets. I'll do these vertical sometimes I'll just lay them flat, and I'll actually be trying to get the animal to stand in here and have the bait kind of arranged a certain way to where he'll have to like maybe put his feet on the whiskers themselves and push it down and trigger it. Obviously, if it's going the traditional way, vertical, it's gonna go through and kind of the head will go in here, and then it'll push through. So what I did was I just took a little piece of paracord strand and just tied it in the middle, and I just blackened it with a marker so you can't really see it. So this is more of a natural feeling. So animals are used to sticks and stuff that bends touching them. So instead of something hard here that it's maybe going to think it can't get past, it's just kind of a loose piece of cordage. So maybe its head will go over the top or push through the bottom. Either way, that cord's going to give you kind of a horizontal force to rotate this against the dog and trigger it. So kind of experimenting with that. I also actually put a little stick in there with twine tied around it. I've got some here, and then I just smeared peanut butter across that stick, so the animal's really going to have to work that stick to get that loose, or just to get the bait and wiggle this or push it or stand on it, and eventually that'll trigger it as well. So those are just kind of some of the ideas I'm experimenting with for how to configure the whiskers. I do like this piece of rope in between. I think that's probably going to be a winning strategy there. Okay, so that's another thing you can do, but then you're left with the issue of dog sensitivity. And here's your dog right here. Okay. So the closest one to the jaws is the least sensitive. So I always do the most sensitive, which is the furthest out one. And you can see that the shape is augmented compared to the other ones. It's a little more rounded here. And basically, as this kind of comes up to a full vertical, I mean, picture that like a half pipe or something. When it goes up to that full vertical, the full vertical is what holds in the jaw, right? Holds it really good. And if that part is not vertical and it's rounded, then that's going to make it either not hold it at all or make it really sensitive so it wants to slide out. And that's what you want. You want that to be as sensitive as possible, or at least I do, because I don't want anything getting in here and not triggering it. If it's a non-target animal, then, you know, like a rat or something, I still want it triggered because I want to kill it, because tomorrow it's going to come back and do the same thing. So if I kill it, it won't be around. I know some people might think that's messed up, and normally I put these in areas where the likelihood is going to be that it's the target animal is going to get it. So I don't want anything to get in here and steal my bait and it not kill it. So I just basically took my Dremel, and I mean, you can use a diamond bit, a sanding bit, one of the conical sanding bits there, and just get in there and just really subtly grind that out, or smooth out that corner there. Now you have to do this very subtly. I mean, 2-3 seconds, and then set the trap and see if it's improved. If you do it too much, you're going to basically pretty much ruin it, or you're going to have to reprofile the whole thing, which is going to kind of change how the trap operates. So just be real subtle in grinding that out, but you will get a hair trigger. So as soon as those whiskers are touched, I mean, this thing might even go off in your hands, so you have to be careful and definitely hold the spring as you pull your other hand away. And the last thing you'll be touching is the spring coil right there. So if that does happen to go off, you're not going to get hurt. So safety first, obviously, but if you want it as sensitive as possible and you want that hair trigger, that's what you're going to have to do. Now, on these ones, I did get this pretty much perfect. I mean, these are super sensitive. Anything even touches those whiskers, it's going off. So I did those great. This one over here was the first one I did, and I got a little too aggressive. And you can actually probably see, compared to the other one, that this is a lot wider, this kind of half pipe shape, because I did too much. So it wouldn't catch at all, and then I reprofiled it, and since it's too wide now, it wouldn't engage the dog properly. And I don't really want to set it right now to show you, because I don't want to just deal with getting my hands caught in it. So I'll just kind of explain it. So basically, there's another issue with this. I'm not even sure what this is called, but this part of the trap here, okay? So the reason it's cut out there is that little flat part in there is what actually touches the dog, and that edge pushes the dog up when this rotates. I mean, it's pretty obvious if you understand the mechanism of the trap. This rotates, the dog is here in it. Use a knife as a pointer. It's sitting right there, just with friction. This rotates, pushes it up, slides off, and then that triggers the trap, right? Okay, well, first of all, look at how much play is in this. See how that goes up and down like that? That's giving you play in the sensitivity so that when your whiskers are like this, they're going to move like this, kind of almost loosely before they even touch the dog. So that's a design flaw in the trap. So one thing I did, you'll see how this one is really loose. So over on here, this one is not loose at all. It doesn't go back and forth at all. So I actually crimped with pliers right here and here, and this is just soft steel. And so what that did is it kind of pushed this down, and it does make it a little bit tighter, but just work it a couple times and it'll loosen up. And it's only got to move this much in the set position for it to work. So it doesn't matter if it rotates freely all the way, it just has to rotate here. Okay, so now there's no play there. And that's a simple mod. You just squeeze it with pliers, boom, you're done. If it's too tight, you're gonna have to loosen that up. Might have to stick a screwdriver in there to loosen it. Okay. So I'll probably have to use 2 traps here to show you this part. So that it'll basically fit in like this when it's set, right? Okay. Now you'll notice that there is a nail head there, right? And on here, there's not one. So basically what I did, drilled a small hole right on the edge, right there, all the way through, cut and nail, I don't know, maybe quarter of an inch, third of an inch, and just pounded it in that hole so that you've got, hard to show, but you got just that little nail head sticking out. Okay, what that nail head does is it will engage the dog sooner. Okay, so you can see right there it's touching it. So as soon as this starts rotating, that nail head is pushing on the dog. Okay, whereas before there's a delayed reaction, even with the mod of crimping that and making it tighter, because there's just nothing sticking out enough to push that dog. So the fact that it rotates makes that even more pronounced. So it's really sensitive. So once that starts rotating, that dog flies off. And I didn't even have to glue it. I basically just cut a nail with the Dremel cutting disc, drilled a hole, pounded it in there, and it's in there. So it's hard for me to say whether doing this mod is better than just sanding and filing down the dog, or a combination of both. But those are things you can try. If the filing doesn't work, or if you did like me and you overdid it, you can easily modify the whiskers here and compensate for any screw ups with the dog modification. So, those are cheap, no cost mods you can do as long as you have like a Dremel and a drill. And that'll allow you to get your Conibears to the most sensitive setting that they can possibly be. And anybody who's trapped with Conibears for game like squirrels, larger game, maybe like skunk, possum, they'll generally, you don't need that super sensitivity because they're big enough and strong enough to trigger it. But a 110 is, I mean, I caught a skunk before and it didn't kill it, and they caught it right by the neck and it didn't kill it. So these have killed up to fox-sized animals before, but really you need like a 160 or a 220 if you're going to be catching raccoons and bigger animals. So these are good for squirrels, possums, and like I said, for me personally, because of the issues I've had with non-targets stealing bait and target animals stealing the bait and not triggering the trap, I want it really sensitive. So those are the mods that I did. Just want to share that with you guys in case anybody wants to try it or experiment with it like I did. And that's all in this one. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for watching.